Okay.
So we should be recording now. This is very exciting. Michael, how do you say your last name?
Onofri.
Onofri. Good. I'm glad I asked because I wouldn't have said that. Michael Onofri is here to talk to us about being in the trenches.
Hi, everyone. I guess I can't see you, but you can see me. So basically, yes, my name is Michael Onofri. I am a writer and also CE at LD Entertainment. I've been a writer for about 7 years, and I was an actor before that. And I kind of found writing about 7 years ago after I took some classes at the Groundlings. So I've been doing that since then. And acting kind of went in the background. And then I also wanted to get more experience in the industry, have another avenue, hopefully, for my writing. So I was a personal trainer and stopped all that and got rid of all my clients and became a intern at LD Entertainment, where I'm working now. And after 5 years, I was an intern for about 6 months. I then became a front desk person, then an assistant, then another assistant, and then a CE, which I am now. So if anyone doesn't know, a CE is someone who is constantly bringing in material. So I have to constantly look for articles and books and scripts. I have to bring in maybe a remake of a film. Documentaries, magazines, anything. I'm constantly having to read. So I bring in stuff, present it, and hopefully we'll option it. So once that happens and we option something, we hire a writer, and then we get the scripts coming in. So I will work on the scripts once they come in. Could be 3, 4, 5, 10 drafts of something. And I'm constantly always having to look for material while reading these scripts. Sometimes one scene's different to help work on in development. So that's how that works. If there's any questions at any time, please bring them up and I'll try to answer, or you can just hold to the end. So if anyone doesn't know how development works, it's a process of getting a script into shape and putting the pieces together to put it into production. You might have heard of the term development hell, and that's usually where a script goes to die because it's just not working. So you might have 20 drafts of a script in every iteration, completely a page one rewrite. You might have a great script, but you just can't get a director attached, which maybe then means you can't get a cast attached. Development hell means something, you have a product and it's not moving forward and it just kind of falls by the wayside and then it goes on a shelf and dies. So my job in development is to try to make sure that does not happen. So you try to get the scripts in the best shape possible, and then getting your actors, directors, all that attached. So that's how development works. I said before, I have to acquire properties. So that, again, could be IPs, which are books, any kind of ideas. We bring writers in to pitch. Anything, any kind of idea, any kind of piece of material, it's considered an IP, and that's what we try to develop, and we develop that. So from the idea to the script to getting a finished script to getting people attached. That's basically the process of development. The time frame from getting a script to maybe production can range. It can be all over the map. It could be 2 years. It could be 5 years. We're in production right now, a film called Dog Days. And it was probably about a year and a half ago. Someone had an idea. We hired a writer right away. And it was in great shape, the first draft. We probably have had 4 to 5 drafts since then. But we got a director fairly quickly, probably 6 months after the first draft. And then we kind of greenlit it and went from there. He helped getting our cast. It's a comedy. He's a comedic director, and he had a lot of friends, so it was easy to get those actors attached and get the ball rolling. So for my company, LD, it it was a quick process in those terms. We had a project, a film out this past June, Megan Levy, and that took about 5 years from her coming in and pitching her story. It's a true story about a bomb-sniffing dog in the Marines and their handler. She came and pitched her story, and of course, we loved it. She went with us. We started hiring writers. We probably had about 3 different teams of writers, and had to get an actor attached, had to get a director attached. That process took another 5 years. So the process from script to production can be all over. Hopefully it does not, and a couple times it was in development hell because we could not get anyone attached. But once one person attaches, that's when it gets kind of hot, so that someone else will attach themselves, and then the project grows. Someone asked me, how do we find our writers? There's a myriad of ways. Agents, a lot of time, will hear about, say, a book we acquired. They have a writer, say it's a sci-fi book. They have a lot of sci-fi writers, so they will submit their samples for all their writers. So it's my job, once again, to read all these samples to the writers. Someone catches my eye, we'll bring them in, we'll have a meeting. Maybe they'll pitch at that time. We'll have them in again and say, pitch to us, and we'll attach them if we like their take, of course. Reading the blacklist. I don't know if anyone knows here, the blacklist is usually the best unproduced scripts the past year. Agents, producers, managers, everyone votes on them throughout the year, and it's usually about, I think, about 30 scripts or maybe 40 of the best scripts that were not produced that year. You hear about them, you ask for them, and then you read them, and then if you like that writer, that you consider someone now in your stable. Or Deadline. If you see a script sold to Deadline, which is a site I prescribe that everyone goes to every day, it's just saying what's being bought, what's being produced, what an agent that just moved up in the ranks, someone just signed with this agent. It's basically a news blog for people in the industry. On Deadline, if a script sells or it's getting hot, you might want to read that script, see if that writer's good, if you think it might be good for your company, and then we'll ask for that script by the agent. I'll read him, and he might be another writer we have now. So that's how we find our writers. So back to how much I read. I'm reading constantly. It's basically probably 75% of my job. I try to get through a script or article every day, and then on the weekends, just like this weekend, I had 2 scripts called Weekend Reads. So I had to read 2 scripts this weekend, and then I'll have my Monday meeting tomorrow, and then the whole company will discuss our scripts. The scripts I read this weekend are 2 projects we're developing. Sometimes it's just to see if we want to take this project on. These scripts were basically 2 projects we are trying to make. So one was a foreign film, a horror thriller. I think it was a German film we acquired like 6 years ago at a film festival. So here we go, 6 years later, we still have not cracked this code for the remake. So we've had, I think this is our 3rd team of writers on this script, and it's a completely almost page 1 rewrite. So I went in thinking I knew the story very well. It changed a lot. So it's in development hell right now. We're trying to push this forward. The second was to a book that my company acquired. It's called Words on the Bathroom Wall. And we optioned the book. We're trying to make this into a film. So this was the very first draft of this project. So it was exciting to see what the writer did adapting it. And so I had something I knew very well, and first draft of the film that I knew nothing about. So, but my reading takes up much of my time. If I'm not at home reading, I might be in my car listening to it. I have an app on my phone that I'm constantly listening to that reads my scripts to me, because there's so much to read. If I didn't get as much time in as I can, even driving, I would fall behind. So I'm constantly listening to scripts or reading them. And they'll be random books or articles, anything that is thrown on my desk. So there's that. I wanted to go over a preparation of pitching. If you are so lucky that you have the opportunity to pitch to an executive or a manager or an agent who's vying for you, I would have to say practice it and have your pitch down. I cannot stress enough, just the performance of your pitch, because as writers, I know a lot of times we don't have the performance gene. So it's even more onus on you to have it rehearsed, because you don't want to be hemming and hawing. You don't want to be fumbling over your story. I mean, it is your story. You should have it down. And it just looks so much more impressive, as a person and as a professional, if you can just blow through that pitch, be entertaining, and not be searching for words or searching what happens next. Many times I pitch myself on roadmap, some of my pitches for my scripts, and I'll be able to see other writers pitching. And a lot of times they don't have it down, and it's disconcerting, because I'm trying to follow the story, but I'm losing it because they're either just not, it's not that they're not engaged, but it's coming off that way because they're all over the place. So I would really stress, practice your pitch in front of a bunch of people, and it's a performance you need to have, and make it theatrical, make it, tell that story. I had a writer in that I liked. I met at a party. I had him in to pitch, just to meet me, and he started pitching me. When he came in, he was a younger writer. He was very nervous, I could tell, and he was looking all over the place, and he was not in. I could see he was not being himself. But he had a script that I read, I liked, or I heard about, and I wanted to read. So I had him pitch me the script, and he completely changed. He had it down, and I was like, oh my God, who is this person that was just hemming and hawing about himself for 20 minutes, now had his pitch, and it was a completely new person. And I knew that he had practiced this, because there's no way he could have just came up with that performance. So right away, I liked him so much more, because I could tell that he had his stuff. He had it down. And then of course I wanted to read the script, and I loved it. And it was all because the pitch, it was a performance that sold me. So, all right. Next I want to tell you guys, okay. You should constantly be networking. I know we all think there should be a meritist society, but it isn't. And the term who you know is, it might be a cliche, but it's true. And I believe it's a misunderstood cliche. Networking, it doesn't have to be work. And I say that because you could be networking if you're in a writer's group. You can be networking on roadmap, just pitching. You should always be networking, but not making it work, because then I feel you are going to step back and not want to do it. But just try to just find a community of writers, no matter wherever that can be, because then you're naturally networking and not having to feel like you have to go out and present yourself in a generic way, but just being yourself in your community of writers. By that, who knows who you will meet. You could meet a fellow writer who just got an agent. They might be also looking for other writers. So now they might introduce you to that young agent, because you knew this other writer just organically. The writer that I just spoke about, who was nervous but had a great pitch, I met him through just a networking event for someone else, and I just happened to tag along, and we got to talking, and I said, I want to read your stuff, and it wasn't planned. I kind of went for my friend, but now a new contact was made. He made a contact through me for the same reason, but it was just an organic way of doing it. It wasn't, I'm going out here to make a new contact. It just so happened. So I stress, practice your pitches and constantly be networking. As it should be a job you need to do. Think of it that way. What else? I would say, don't be in a rush as a writer in any form whatsoever. And I mean that in finding representation, selling your script. As a writer, you cannot set a clock for yourself, because if you do, then you're not a writer. This is a profession that takes time, it takes work, and you have to constantly be working at it. So when I say don't be a rush, what I mean is you have to make sure you're ready to play in the big leagues, because this is the Super Bowl of the arts. We have the best actors here, the best directors, the best writers. So you're going against the best of the best. And for you to become one of those people, it takes time and it takes a lot of work. So you constantly have to be reading and writing. You have to just fill yourself with as much, reading as many scripts as you can, writing as much as you can to make yourself better. So you should never be in a rush to get an agent. I meet a lot of people. They say, how do you get an agent? I said, it will happen when it's supposed to happen. Because if you write a script, you worked on it for, say, 4 years, and it's now in incredible shape, and you only have that one script to show. When you do get a meeting with an agent and they said, what else do you have? And you don't have anything else, you're not going to be looked at as someone who has a large output. You have one great script, you're one hit wonder, and that's it. You have to have a whole shelf of projects and ideas, and that only comes through time. So when I say don't be in a rush, you have to make sure you're ready for everything that's going to come at you. Same thing, if it takes you 4, 5, 6 months to finish one of your own scripts, that's great. But if you've been hired now by someone else and you have only 6 weeks to deliver, and it took you 6 months with your previous script, well, that's a tall order now. Or if you're hired for rewrites, you need to have a process in place, installed, that you can crank one out quickly, because you're under the gun now. And if you're fairly a newbie writer and you don't have that process down, which you could just whip it out, the pressure might come to you. I've seen it happen in my company. We've hired writers that we liked. They were fairly new, and they were constantly missing the deadlines because they just didn't have their process in place to finish on time. So you have, by writing a lot, writing constantly over a period of many years, it's going to come, of course, naturally, and you'll be able to meet those deadlines. You don't want to get that reputation as someone who can't deliver. So when I say don't be a rush, don't be in a rush. All these things, you have to be ready, and you don't want to create a bad name for yourself. And then be great. Of course, that's obvious. But I say that because you should have 20 drafts of your script. If you've done a couple drafts, 1, 2, 3 drafts, I'm pretty sure your script could be okay, but it's not great. You should never be satisfied with one of your drafts until you're so exhausted by it, you can't even look at it anymore. And hopefully by that point, then your script is great. A lot of times I see people handing in work and they think they're finished, and they're not. You could tell that it's a haphazard draft, and now we look at them probably a little less than when we brought them in before. You should want to be great. You should want to strive to be great, and that means constantly going back, constantly showing it to your writers group, your community of writers, tirelessly showing it to people to make sure that it's in a great place. You should never be satisfied. And again, going back to reading and writing a lot, that's how you become great. Read and write a lot. So if there are any questions, I know I kind of maybe sped through a lot right there. I don't know if there's anything that I kind of glossed over that maybe people want to touch on. Are there any questions? I would like to open it up, have more of a dialogue with anyone.
Guys, if you have questions, add them to the Q&A box or even in the chat box, whichever one. Pop them in there. I think this is great. Please keep going.
Do you have anything?
That's a lot.
I know.
Do I have questions? Well, I guess it's interesting for me, your specific background of going from kind of one side of the camera to another side of development. And I wonder, how do you see if that serves you? Like, does your old actor self ever be like, man, this is a really great actor, or kind of any of that? I'm curious about
Of
that.
course, all the time. I went to school for acting, went to school for theater, so I have a lot of performance, a large performance background. So I've seen a lot of scenes. I've taken a lot of classes, and it's great because I know when someone is not listening as an actor. So we're doing this film right now, and we have to see the dailies, and so we're watching the performances, and I can tell when someone's not in it. I can tell when they're forcing it. So it does help in the development side. It's great because I can now tell the other team or the director, we need to direct them more, that this actor needs a little help because it's not coming through from what we're seeing. So it has helped tremendously. As well as if I'm writing a piece for myself, I'll be talking to myself quite often, acting out the characters. So a normal person or maybe another writer would think they're crazy to do that. I don't mind talking to myself because it's another gene that I've always had. I don't mind doing weird voices to myself. So
That's great.
I've got a couple questions. This is
Okay, cool.
great. First one is, how do you cope processing so much material without going bonkers? That is a great one, because sometimes I do go bonkers. It's a constant flow of information. Like I said, I'm listening to scripts in my car, so it's always coming at me, and I just have to sometimes I have to go for walks. I have to work out because I meditate. These are all things I suggest everyone do too, not just for your health, but for the sanity of it, because I have a constant influx of material in my brain. So you just have to you have to juggle it. It's tough at times. If I'm not reading something again, I'm watching dailies. I have to watch a film for an actor to see if they'd be right for a role. It's constant. So the stuff that you normally love to do, of course, becomes work, and now it's not as enjoyable at times when you have to watch a movie for an assignment and not just for enjoyment. So it can be tough, but you learn to cope, and it's the job. So it's my job. That's what I have to do. Christopher has asked, what is the suggested career route? Should we be pursuing representation, selling scripts, networking, or just writing? What should we focus on first? If you want to be a writer, I would suggest you should be writing. That's definite. No other ifs, ands, or buts, because that's the only way you get better is writing. And as I said before, you can look for representation, but make sure you are ready for it. Because if word gets around that you're not ready, you only get one shot to show someone your work. And if it's shoddy, you may never meet that person again. You may never meet another person because that individual may have said your name to that person and said you don't do great work. So you should always be writing and make sure you're ready before you get representation. What is it, Jessica? What should we pursue? I would say selling networking. Yes, you should always be networking, like I said before, and don't think of it as work. You should be networking in your writers groups. If you go to a party and it's an industry type party, just be personable. It's not that hard to be yourself. But let's say let it come to you. If you open yourself up and be open, it will come. So always be networking. Always be writing, and make sure you're ready. Larry has asked, if a script gets passed from a producer agent, will they then be disciplined? Will they then be inclined to read another from the same writer? Yeah, I mean, we pass on scripts all the time because it just was not right for us, but I might like the writing. So I'll ask for another sample. It just may not be right for us at this time. My company does not like sci-fi very much, but I will read sci-fi because I love it, and maybe for that writer. And if I like that script, I might ask, do you have anything else in this maybe a thriller genre? So just because you get a pass, do never take it personal, because you have no idea why they're passing, and that doesn't mean you're set to the side forever. It's just the nature of the business. And again, it is a cliche saying, but you have to hear 1,000 no's before the yes. And it's just the way it is. It's nothing personal. So thank you for that. Andy asks, what are the biggest 2 or 3 mistakes you see in scripts by newbie writers over and over again? Probably actually typos and grammar. And I'm not a grammar guy by any means. I have the worst grammar, but I know when something is wrong. And it does not look good for you, because it shows that then you probably have not shown this script to many people to proofread, to just to improve upon, to be great, like we said. If you've showed it to 10, 20 people to get notes and there's still typos in there, well, then I don't believe you showed it to that many people, because someone would have said something. It's showing that you have not made the script great, and you've not taken the time to put it out in the world to have people help you improve upon it. So make sure there's no typos. Make sure your structure's correct, and you're grammatically correct, because it just doesn't reflect very well if we see a lot of those. How do you balance writing and work? Do you keep specific hours for your personal projects? I actually had that to speak about, and I must have missed it. Sorry. So my 9 to 5, of course, is my CE job. And then at night, my writing partner comes over, and we're actually working right now on a script. We have an assignment for NASA Entertainment, and we're on a bit of a deadline. So from 9 to 5, 9 to 6, I'm at work. I come home, he meets me at my house, and we usually write from 6 to 9 every day. And then he was over yesterday. So definitely on the weekends and almost every evening, because I can't do it at work, and we have to be together. So it's long days. When I'm not being influxed with information from work, I'm doing my personal projects in the evening. So which goes to, you need to be disciplined. And I'd say, if you always need to be writing and it's hard for you to find the time, then you need to make a schedule. One of the first workshops I took as a writer was called the Writer's Boot Camp. And the first thing they teach you is scheduling for yourself. You should schedule your writing schedule every week. Beginning of the week, 9 to 5, you're working, 6 to 9 in the evenings. You have something in the evenings, then you have to get up 6 to 8 in the morning, and then you go to work. Make a schedule, because if you make a schedule, you're going to hold yourself accountable more so. If you just try to find the time anywhere, it's not going to happen. So I would suggest make a schedule every week, so you know this day, Tuesday, now I can't watch my rerun of Friends, I'm writing. Jason says, great to hear your insightful insider view. I'd be interested to ask, does your company ever pick up a script knowing that a lot of work needs to be done? Or do you always buy scripts that are done or 90% done? Can a script change 50% through development or more? So we'll take that in pieces. Does your company ever pick up a script knowing that a lot of work needs to be done? It can, but we get a lot of submissions, and like we're reading all the time. We don't have the time to put in a lot of work on a script unless we hired a writer to write it, and we need to work on it because it's ours. We'll work on it. We're not going to option a script if a lot of work needs to be done, because it's more work that has to be done by us, which is the writer's job. So I'm going to say more often than not, no, we will not pick up a script that needs a lot of work unless there is a huge name. I will say the stipulation is Johnny Depp is attached, which doesn't happen very often. And then a script is not good comes, because if a script is not good, if it needs a lot of work, then that actor, the big name actor, probably isn't attached. So it doesn't happen very often. But if a name is attached, we might take it on then. Do you always buy scripts that are done or 90% done? Yes. Can a script change 50% through development? Yes. Again, if we have hired a writer for a draft, say of a book we've optioned, and we don't like it at all, we might hire a brand new writer, and they might do a page 1 rewrite. Most often times, a script, your first draft is going to change 50%, even more, because the first draft is, of course, your worst draft. You just got to get it out there. But then you work from there. But this is only when we've hired a writer. I would never say, show that first. If you were showing your first draft to anyone, never do that. An agent, I should say. Again, make sure that that script is great before you show it to representation or producer. I hope that answered that, Jason. Christopher asked, we're sometimes told to focus or specialize on one genre or style. comedy, sci-fi, etc., at least to get a foot in the door? Should we instead have a varied portfolio spanning genres? How about different forms, short stories, articles? How should we even mention this? I don't prescribe to you should only write one kind of genre. I think a writer should be able to write many kinds because you are a writer. We are creatives, so you should. But in the instance of just starting out, then I would say try to stick with one genre until you have representation and they can get you out there. If you meet someone and you say I have a sci-fi script, I have a horror script, and I have a drama, they're not going to know what to, because it's all about selling you. And if someone doesn't know how to sell you, if you have all these different kind of scripts, it's going to be hard for an agent to take you on. So I would say, yes, you specialize in the beginning. Once you have a rapport with your agent or your manager and they can guide you, maybe you want to do now a drama script, then you can start branching out, but not in the beginning because they're not going to know how to handle you. I would say you can work on all your stuff, but then don't show your agent or manager in the beginning because, again, it's going to be hard for them because they have their specific holes they need to fill with. They need a genre writer, they need a drama writer, they need a comedy writer. You need to fill a hole. Once you have proven yourself to them and maybe the industry, then you can branch out. But I like to write all different kinds of genres too, but not until you've set yourself up in one. I hope that makes sense. Octavia asked, what is a CE? So CE stands for Creative Executive. And if you missed the beginning of the webinar, I explained that a CE constantly is looking for material. So my job is to bring in books, scripts, articles, documentaries, anything that can be turned into a film. So I have to be a detective and search out all kinds of ideas, all kinds of properties, all kinds of books. So my job is to go out and search for things. Once we have our book, once we have our idea, then we have to get a writer. He starts writing the scripts, and then my job is to also read those scripts and help get the script into workable shape. So I bring in ideas and material and then work on the scripts once you have a writer working on them. That's mostly what a CE does. I also go to film festivals, which is great. It's a great perk for my job. So I go out and I scout writers of a film. I, Tanya was one I just saw at Toronto. Loved it. We had that writer in because I love the film so much. I'll also scout directors for our projects and our films. So a CE kind of is like a utility man. Does a bunch of different things. Constantly also networking with agents to ask about new writers they've hired. So it's all over the place.
I have a quick question. I'm
Sure.
chiming in here. There's another.
Yes.
Just want to make sure. Octavia had another question. I'm not sure. It was in the chat box, so I want to.
Okay.
You. Just what is the name of the app you use to listen to the scripts, articles, and everything?
It's called VBooks PDF.
Cool.
So I actually have it on my phone and my computer. The one on the phone I prefer because you can go really fast. I can listen to, I think 400 words a minute. If you have to get, of course, used to that, and it's a robotic voice talking like this sometimes. But once you get used to that, I can follow quickly. On the computer, if you do it, sometimes it'll do a line and then jump down to the bottom of the page and then go to the middle. So it sometimes is all over, and you have to try to find where you are on the script now if you're on the computer. So I would recommend, if you want to use it, use the one on your phone because there's no glitches. But real helpful to blast through a script. If you need to get something read quickly, great way to do it. And you can read with it as well. So you're not just listening, you're watching and reading, and you don't get as distracted if you're just reading a script and something happens. It keeps you engaged because it's being read to you.
Cool, thank you.
Okay. Jason asks, is it common for a new writer who only has spec scripts, nothing yet produced, to be commissioned to write a new script for your company? Yes. Because my company now we're getting more cachet in the industry. We're a fairly new company. We're about 6-7 years old, but we're getting better projects. We're hiring better writers. So it's someone who has representation, probably has been on the blacklist, has sold a couple things. Because scale for to write a new draft of a script, WGA rules says scale, I think is 80,000 Don't quote me on that. I think that's what it is. We're not going to spend $80,000 on someone who isn't proven to some extent. So it helps that they have. We're not going to be giving it to someone if they don't have representation anyway, because there's so many scripts out there, so many writers out there. You want to vie for people that have some cachet behind them. So I know it's horrible to hear, but it only helps when you know you can bank on this person, because you're going to give them a lot of money to write that script for you. If they haven't done much, we really can't put our trust in them just yet. Yvonne asks, what was that script? What was the reading app called? And again, VBooks PDF. Jason asks, it's James, by the way. Sorry, James. Don't know why I'm coming up as that. Don't know either. Let's see. Would you mind resending this question? Any more questions, anyone? These are all great, by the way. Thank you, guys. Great, insightful questions. They've all been answered. No more questions, anyone? How about this? What has anyone seen lately that they loved? I saw Molly's Game at Toronto, and I suggest everyone to see it. It's Aaron Sorkin's latest script he wrote, of course, and his directorial debut, and it's a work of genius. So I suggest everyone to go out, steal his tricks, watch what he did, because, of course, as we all know, Aaron Sorkin is the best of the best, and see his use of story and how he tells it and how he frames it. That's another thing. You should always not just be reading and writing scripts. You need to be watching. Watch as much as you can. Again, you only get better by seeing how anyone else does it. You want to play basketball and be good. You play with people better than you. So you should always be going to movies. I know some writers and actors, they don't see anything, and because they say they can't afford it, and I understand that. But you need to get a Netflix account and then stay at home and watch, because you need to be seeing, one, what's being made and sold, but how the greats do it. So always be reading, always be writing, and always be watching, because not only is it your job, but it's fun. So you should do that.
I have a quick question for you. It looks like there's a bunch more in the Q&A too. People are loving it. They're getting in there. But I wondered if you could also talk a little more about your schedule. I like how you had said that I think in this world we can be so all over the place. Mm-hmm. So I wondered how you got to a schedule that works for you, and any tips you have for people who are balancing a lot of things.
Okay. One, I would say that find out what kind of writer you are. Some people love to write in the morning. Some move up to write at night. I can't write in the mornings. I'm actually an afternoon person, but of course I can't do that because I'm at work. So I write in the evening. So I find it's better for me. But then schedule-wise, again, it's easier because I have my job. That's blocked out. I just have to, again, go through my calendar and say, Saturday, 12 to 5, I got to work. I got to write. I got to work. So 12 to 5, I write it in there. I put it in there in my calendar. And then Tuesday and Wednesday, I have drinks with an agent, so I can't. So I got to do it in the morning, even though it's tough. I got to get up and I put it in my calendar. 6 to 8, got to work on whatever I need to work on. You got to find your time and put it in there and make your schedule. You'll hold yourself accountable and you'll get more done. Hope that helps. We have more questions. Love it. That was a script. What is the suggested career? I think we answered. Oh, there we go. Open. Christopher asked, since I don't live in LA, I stand little chance at TV. Should I still be writing TV? If you want to be a TV writer, then yes, you need to be writing TV. And unfortunately, yes, you need to be in Los Angeles if you want to be a television writer. Not so much for features, because you can be anywhere for that and sell your script and have an agent. But because the shows are filmed here and the writers' rooms are all here, you need to be in LA. So I don't know where you are, Chris, but I would highly think about, if you really want to do TV, making the move. Or if you, because what happens is you're going to be interviewed by a showrunner, and you're going to be, or your agent, I'm sure, will give you all these interviews with the showrunners, which are in LA. If you're not here, of course, it's hard to get those interviews. They're not going to say, well, we need him here all the time. Or if you're splitting time, it's just going to work against you. So I don't know where you're at in your life or geography wise, but I would suggest contemplating that, because if you really want to do TV, that's where you need to be. So how important is it that you, as a writer, how important is it to you as a writer that you have a personal connection to your material? Many execs find this very important and want to see a clear connection. I think it's very important you have a personal connection to your writing, because again, we write what we know, and if you're writing what you know, it's going to be more genuine. You're going to feel it. When I'm reading something, I usually can tell if it's a personal story, even if I've been told that or not. It just comes through in the writing. A lot of times, if it's a drama, I can see that. I can see it in the writing, them putting their personal touches in it, their personal experiences. Not so much in comedy, but in a drama, I can feel it. So I would suggest putting as much of your personal experience, things that happen to you, your point of view. I know a writer that he always puts at least one monologue from the protagonist's point of view, as if he was saying this. It's his words, because he says, I need to be writing because it's me. And he will always put at least one monologue from his protagonist's point of view, as if he's saying those words. So yeah, make it personal. It's only going to enhance your writing. Jay asks, can you work in the room less than 12 hours a day? Can you work in the room less than 12 hours a day, 5 days a week? I'm not sure what you mean by in the room. Can you just specify, Jay? So I don't know if you mean the writer's room. Some writer's rooms will go on for 14 hours, if that's what you mean. Writer's rooms are tough. You have to crack that story. There's a lot of voices in there. You have to get your voice heard. So we don't have a writer's room per se in my office, but a lot of the CEs, since we're working on the scripts, it kind of acts as a writer's room. And it's hard to get your voice heard because you feel strongly, they feel strongly, and you have to debate your case. And I mean, again, we're not the writers, but sometimes we're in that office for 5 hours in the conference room trying to break story, and we're not even the writers. So if you're, yes, the writer's room. Thank you, Jay. So yeah, a writer's room can be 14 hours long. I know that on, I think it's Family Guy, they have, I think, 30 writers in the room. And that makes sense because their jokes are a mile a minute if you watch the show. I mean, I'm like, how did they come up with all this? Well, of course, they have 30 voices trying to get their joke in the show. So, and of course, it's going to take that long because you have all these people fighting and vying for it. I know with Modern Family, I believe there's 2 writers' rooms because I think there's 2 showrunners and they don't get along. So they have their own teams. So I don't know how long their writing sessions take, but they actually split up the episodes. So that's an interesting thing. So every writer's room is different. Some writer's rooms are 5 people, some are 30. It's all different. And they'll have their own process. Most Hollywood features these days follow tight formula so they get bigger returns overseas. Any suggestions on following formula without being trite? That's a good one, Christopher. Thank you. I would say I don't know the answer to that. I would say if you have to follow a formula, say for a rom-com, boy of course loses girl, boy gets girl in the end. There's a formula to that. I would say then do something that hasn't been done before. So the past 5 rom-coms we've seen it end at the altar. Where does your rom-com end? I would say if you have to go to formula, then give us something we haven't seen in that. And what you should be doing anyway, you should always be trying to think, how can this be different? You're going to be ahead of your reader, ahead of your audience. What do they not see coming? You should be doing that regardless in all your writing. Because if it comes up too easy, if you have, of course, a conflict, a problem, and you thought of the solution easy, then it's probably a weak solution. Always be banging out, what do they not see coming? Be ahead of your audience and your reader. And that way you probably won't be so trite in a formulaic movie. That was a great one. Thank you, Chris. Great question. Should we specialize in material? Anything? Keep them coming, guys. These are all great. I love hearing these. It's great for me myself to be reminded of some of these things that I forget sometimes. So yeah. Christopher asks, should we specialize on the area we believe? Oh, just went away. Should we specialize in an area we believe will make us an easy sale or that we prefer doing? I'm great at sitcom writing and believe I could be staffed, on cable at least, but most of my ideas are more sci-fi, fantasy, horror. I would suggest writing what you feel is your strong point, because if you write something that you feel is going to sell or because it's selling a lot, but you're not adept in that, well then who would want that? If you don't think you're great at sci-fi, but it's selling, then you probably are not going to write a strong sci-fi script. I would suggest write what your strong point is, because again, you want to put your best foot forward. If you hand someone a sci-fi script that's not great, now that's the impression they're going to have of you, that you're not a great sci-fi writer, just not probably a strong writer. So I would say if you love doing sitcom and people tell you you're great at sitcom writing, then you should write that, because that's going to put you in the best light. I don't want someone who's a great drama writer writing comedy, because comedies are selling and they can't write comedy. It's not going to help me. It's not going to help them. Hope that helps. What is the production they keep leaving. What is the production process like once you've purchased a script? Well, again, once we purchase a script, then we're in development, and development could take 2, 3, 4, 5 years. Production usually will be in production for about 6 weeks. 6 weeks is prep. So that's, getting all your HODs, your heads of the department, scouting, the director doing his storyboards, all that is prep. And that takes about 6 weeks. Production, of course, it could be 4 months, it could be 30 days. Production is always different. With the movie we're shooting right now is a 30-day shoot, which is great, and it's in Los Angeles. We did that because we thought it's an ensemble cast, we needed some bigger name actors, and we figured that if it's in Los Angeles and they don't have to travel, it'll be easier to get those names, and it worked. So we got some bigger names because of that. A lot of times, this is our first in Los Angeles. We have shot in Spain, we've shot in Italy, we've shot in Czechoslovakia. It was harder because they're away, and the communication between the production office and our office it's 8, 9, maybe 10-hour time difference. So that will hinder the production. This is a great production since we're in LA, because everyone's visiting set and we can give notes. And if there's a problem, whatever, we can handle it right away. So production is always varying. But if it's in Los Angeles, it goes much smoother. I hope that answers your question, Octavia. Chris asks, if our material is critical or controversial, does it stand any chance of being read? Or should we do our best to make it more mainstream? Will that come across as forced? Will it show that we are malleable? I would say you should always be doing something maybe critical or controversial. That's making the reader think. I prefer to read something that's maybe controversial. Now, it depends what that is. Is it a civil rights case? Is it something maybe sexual in nature? If it's controversial where it's abhorrent, then no. But you should be challenging your reader. I challenge everyone to write something that is going to question someone's thoughts, someone's ideology. And again, if that's what you feel strongly about, again, if it's personal to you, you should be writing something personal. You should write that. I don't want to read anything milquetoast. I want to read something that's going to be engaging. So always be doing that, Chris. Don't worry about it. You should always be writing something that you feel strongly about, that you feel is in your wheelhouse, because that's what I'm going to read your best stuff. Wendy asks, when you find a great script, what is the proportion of the time that the script goes into development versus identifying a writer as someone who can rewrite existing? I'm going to read that again. When you find a great script, what is the proportion of the time that script goes into development versus identifying a writer as someone who can rewrite existing IP? Wendy, I think you mean if we have a script as opposed to a book. Tarina is going to answer this question live, I guess. Tarina, you there?
Nope, sorry, that's me. When I push that little thing, I'm clearing out the old questions. So that's
got it. Okay.
Sometimes when they disappear, I try to only do the ones you've already answered.
Got it.
So like Chris is gonna disappear, and then Wendy stays, and
got it.
Just over
Sorry,
here.
guys.
Things.
I should have done that. My fault. So when we find a great script and going into development, again, everything is a different journey. We find a script, and it could take 4 years to get it in the shape we think is great, and then getting a director and a writer or a cast. If we find a book that we like, finding someone to rewrite that book is easy. Adapt that book, because everyone wants a job, of course. So if we option a book, then we'll of course get our writing samples. We'll talk to the agents. Who do you have that's good for this? And it'll probably be about 3 months, 4 months maybe before we find a writer and we have they start writing when we option a book. I hope that answers your question, Wendy. I hope I got that right. James asks, could you give an example of how a script has changed through the development process without giving specifics if it's sensitive information? No. Can you script change through the development process? Okay, so for instance, like the script I just read today, we acquired the rights to this foreign genre horror film, and we've had 2 teams of writers over 5 years, and they basically wrote the general the film, but in script form and in English. And it just was not scary. It wasn't working. So we had another team of writers put a whole different bent. It was more psychological, and they actually made it paranormal. So there was an apparent ghost that was there, but of course by the end it wasn't. The second team of writers actually put that ghost in, made the script now a true ghost story where it wasn't before. It was a psychological mind twist. It still wasn't working. So we have another team of writers that I just read now, and they threw out a character. They changed the location. The protagonist has a whole different occupation. It's completely changed. So what the story is now from the original film, it's almost night and day. I mean, you might, if you saw the film and then read the script, you may not even put together it's supposed to be the same film. So it can change drastically. And as you're improving it, that's actually showing the writers doing their job. If they are turning it on its head and throwing out a bunch of stuff and trying things, we want to see that, because we need to, things aren't working. We need to see something else that might work. So page 1 rewrites happen all the time, and they should, because that's what the writer, we're hiring you to give us a whole new take. So I hope that helps. Larry asks, as a spec writer, if we get optioned, what are the chances that we'll be retained and not replaced by a more experienced writer? The chances that you're retained, because I believe that, well, it's all depending on your contract. So they could just take your script and say, thank you, we want it, and then put someone else completely brand new. Or if your agent is good, they might say, okay, we're going to give it to you, and we also want the chance, if you don't like it, a rewrite. And then you'd be probably done. And then they put someone else on it. So the chances of you being rewritten are very good, because it happens all the time. And once again, like I said, it's because your script's passed, you don't take it personal. If you're rewritten, you can't take it personal, because it happens almost on every script, every job. There's usually never just one writer on one job. Even when you see in the credits screenplay by, there's probably a lot of people that are uncredited. So the chances are good that if your script is optioned, you probably could get a rewrite, and then you'll be taken off that job, and they might hire someone else. It's not guaranteed, but it's a good chance. But again, don't take it personally. James asks, wow, amazing. And do you still have to pay for the original IP? I think if you're talking about a book, yes. If what happens is you have to option a book. So option, of course, means option to buy. Usually it's about a year. So if you say it's $50,000, you have $50,000 to pay for that book for the year to make the movie. If you don't make the movie, then the option lapse, they get that money and it goes away. If you want to continue to try and rewrite the script, you can opt for another year. That's another $50,000, another year. If you make it and finally greenlight the film, then there's actually probably another fee that you've optioned the script. Now you're actually buying it because you're making the movie. So if you write a book, so I suggest a lot of you out there too, if you're just screenwriters, be a fiction writer, be a novel writer, because if your book gets optioned, it could continue to be optioned many times over, and you're getting checks every year for something you wrote 20 years ago, because people are trying to make your film. It's not bad to be paid sitting on your butt for something you did many years ago. So write those novels. If we sell a script, Chris asked, but the end result is dramatically different, can we resell that original script? No. They bought your script. They own it. So you basically, you don't own it. They can do whatever they want with it. Just like a yard sale. You made a vase and you sold your vase and you gave it and they went left. That person has your vase now. So it's no longer yours. They paid you for your property and it's now their property. So they can do what they want with it. And you cannot resell that script. One and done, sorry. So make sure you get all the money you want that first time. James asked, sorry, I was asking about the horror film you were just describing. So you asked before, James. So I was just, do you get that, Brianna?
Sorry, it's under answered. I got so excited. The original, I think it was the original IP question or the development process question. It's under answered. Sorry.
Okay.
The other little tab.
No problem. Okay. Yvonne asks, what boxes need to get ticketed to take a project? Oh, ticked. What boxes need to get ticked to take a project from development to production? A lot of boxes. Usually you need something big, one big thing first. Of course, that can be one big actor. That can be one big director. That can be a big producer. Once one of those things happens, then you hope everything else falls in line, because once you have this great director, an actor's going to want to work with them or vice versa. Usually with most companies, you have to, of course, find the funding. I'm very, very lucky with my company that we have an investor, and he just funds all our films. So if he just likes it, the package, then he green lights it. We don't have to find the funding. I'm in a very opportunistic place where we're never really searching for the money. It's there. It's just if he wants to pay for this movie or not. So that's one box normally with a normal company. But then once you have we've had many directors attached and can't get any actors. We've had vice versa. We have a project, I can't name it, but it's called, our Jeff Bridges has been attached for 2 years. And we can't find a director. So Jeff Bridges is an Academy Award-winning actor, been nominated 3 or 4 times, fairly bankable, and we can't find a director for his project. And the script is one of my favorites there. So a lot of boxes need to be ticked. I hope that answers your question, Yvonne. I think I saw something about log lines. Can you talk about log lines? Okay, Larry, I'm an expert at log lines, so you asked the perfect question. My philosophy with log lines is, it should, in my opinion, it should be a when, then, until format. So when this happens, then this happens, until this happens. If you can fit your film, your story, in that little frame, and it works, then your story is sound and probably your log line. But it's when this happens, then this happens, until. And it usually involves your protagonist. When this happens to so-and-so, then this happens until this happens. So it's your protagonist and his misbehavior in it. So when a 20-something procrastinating computer nerd, and then this. So try to always have every log line, and it's also going to be easier for someone to follow when you pitch it and they read it. When, then, and until. That's my credo on log lines. Hopefully that helps you. You've read the script. Let's see. Andy asks, are there any themes or tropes that you see in a lot of scripts these days that seem oversaturated, like time travel? Personally, I get every so often a time travel script, and I love them because it's something that it seems every time I read a time traveling script, someone has a new take, and it's great. It's how they time travel, where they time travel to, the rules about it. I love that. So even though I get time traveling scripts every so often, I get excited because I want to see how they tackle that. It's something for me that never gets old. I would say what I'm okay. One thing I'm seeing a lot of, and it makes sense, is the whole AI and computers coming to life and taking over society. I feel like I get one a week where there's a robot or a computer that we're battling against. And of course, we've seen it ever since Terminator. And it seems like every Black Mirror episode, which I love, tackles that in some way. I'm kind of getting sick of us battling the machines for planet Earth. So if anyone's doing those kind of scripts, just let you know there's a lot out there. So I see so many of Terminator-esque battling the machine type movies. Or Andy asked, or that you have read scripts after script after script. Yes, the same thing. I see that all the time. What is the difference between general meeting? Okay, Octavia asked, what is the difference between a general meeting and a pitch? General meeting usually is someone I've met for the first time, or we're meeting for the first time, and we just want to get a sense who they are. What do they like to write? Their story, who they, how long they've been out. It's a general. I'm just generally meeting them. A pitch, which can actually happen in general too. You don't want to bombard them. If it's just a general, you may not, unless the exec asks you, what do you have, then you can pitch. But a pitch is separate, where we may have met the writer already, and now they're pitching us an idea they have, or a script they have. Or if we've purchased, again, an IP and we're bringing writers in, they're pitching their take on that book. So that's the difference between a general meeting and a pitch. Usually we've known the writer already, we've worked with them, and now they're coming in and telling us their take. Okay? If we care about a project, Chris asks, if we care about the project, should we try to attach ourselves as producers or consultants to be sure we can see it through and have some amount of control? Would that work? I would say, as a writer, if you want to sell something and there's already producers that want it and that they don't want anyone else, then if you're new and you want to get a leg up in this industry, I would then I'd let them have it, because you need to get started somewhere. If you feel so dearly and it's precious to you, then of course don't give it up. But I abide by anything to get it done. You have to get in somehow. And if you're preventing yourself by holding things too dear, by holding anything too precious, that could hurt you. Again, a lot of times, what you see in your mind and what you have on paper are not going to be exactly what's on the screen anyway. Movies change all the time in every form. So you can't really hold it too dear. You have to pick your battles. And if you're a newbie writer, or you haven't done much, and someone wants your project, someone wants your script, you might have to give it up to get your foot in the door, because you also don't want to be labeled someone who's difficult to work with. So, but again, if it's dear to you, I don't know if anyone knows or watches Stranger Things, but the writers of that, Duffer Brothers, they gave their project to many producers who wanted it, but the producers insisted, many did, that they should get rid of the kids. The kids are not working. Just stay with the paranormal and get rid of the kids. And they said no. And for years, I think they held tight. Now, of course, it worked out in their favor, but it could have worked against them as well. So you have to pick your battles. It worked out in their case. Sometimes it doesn't. So you have to decide, is this something you want to go forward with, or no, I'm going to keep this. I'm going to wait it out. Octavia asks, does your company only do film, or do you do TV? Also, if you do TV, how are things greenlit when it comes to networks? Very good question. My company does film and is trying to do TV, and we're actually having a very hard time. As I told you, we have an investor, and it's easy for us to greenlight our films because we just make it. It's great. TV is a totally different beast. You have to sell your TV project to the networks, some network, because they put it on. So where we can just greenlight our own films and then put them in a theater, we could greenlight a pilot if we wanted, shoot it, but then we need to put it on a network, and usually the network buys it beforehand. So it's totally different. We're having a very hard time breaking into TV. Even though we've had some success in film, it's but it's a whole different gang. And like I was talking about the showrunners before, if we got a showrunner to handle our project, it would be easier. But they are a high commodity and they're taken up. So we're having a very difficult time in the TV arena. Hope that answers your question, Octavia. I hope I answer. What boxes these? So let's see. I think I answered them all. You guys have wonderful questions. Anything else? Anyone else? These are great, guys. Thank you. No one?
No,
Brianne, you have anything?
I do. I have a question for you.
Go for it.
So you talked about going specifically into to movies with a single investor. So
Yes.
what is, I mean, I guess I'm just curious because like movies to me, and maybe I have the wrong impression, are so much harder to make like major profits off of, or maybe they're not. So the question, yeah, just like how do you commodify that and like
okay, so
while also keeping a new point of view with your
great question. So our investor is he's a businessman. He's made a lot of money in the financial sector. So he's used to having losses, which is great because a lot of our films are very good, but we've lost money on a number of them. And he's okay with that because one, he knows that one, we're getting better each time. Two, we're building a library. And three, this is business and this is what happens. I'm sure he's made deals and brokered deals where it went south, but next one down the line, wipe that one out. So it is tough and we have lost money. Mm. We're learning that as we do each one. We're trying to also get our costs down. We've spent upwards sometimes of 20 million on a film and it's grossed 50 million. Now that sounds great, but if you know how the money works with the theaters, you split that with the theaters. So already now we're down 25 million. So we spent about 25 and now we've already only made 25. That's not even counting your P&A, your prints and advertising, which could be another 10. So maybe we're up to 35. So now we're minus 10 million. We'll get that back over time with rentals and, of course, DVDs and selling it to the network, but it takes time. So it is hard to monetize. Unless you make a movie like Get Out, which I think was made for 3, and then grossed over 100 million, you're seeing those profits right away. And it's obvious to say, of course, you want your budget to be as low as possible because if it costs 10 million and you made 15 million, you think you made a profit, you really didn't. You have to get that number as low as possible. So every movie we have done since then, we've gotten the budget lower and lower, which you learn with where you get your tax rebates, what country, who has the better crews, how many writers did you hire? Did you already spend $500,000 on a writer or writers when you could have just did it with one or two and spent $100,000? We're learning how to get the price down on each film as we go. But yeah, it's tough. It's tough to make a profit sometimes.
And just based on your own background, I know there's a couple more questions in there, but I'm taking some time. Based on your own background, did you learn a lot of this like on the job? I mean, you went from actor to assistant.
Basically, everything I've said in this hour, I didn't know 5 years ago. So
oh wow.
I've learned, which is why it's been great having this job. So yes, I want to be a writer. I am a writer, but taking this job was great because I've learned so much more than I never could have known if I just sat in my room all day and wrote. This has been so eye-opening on the other side, and how movies are made, and just the whole process of what a writer has to go through on the other side. Everything I've told you this hour is something I didn't know 5 years ago.
That's cool. That's really cool. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. What else do we have? Did the script for Killer Joe change a lot in development? How was it pitched? Great question. That was actually before my time. I got to LD just as that was coming out, so I wasn't there for that. But I don't know if you know this, it was a play first. Tracy Letts wrote the play, and I believe the screenplay. So you should see if the play is close to the film. But that's a great question because Matthew, like that did not happen until, of course, Matthew McConaughey saw the play, loved it, then attached himself to the film. And that's why that happened. Matthew McConaughey was the box that got ticked that made that go. I understand you said you have an investor to produce movies, but how are your films distributed? So we don't have a distribution arm. We have to partner with other studios. So our film Risen, which was a faith-based movie, we partnered with Sony Affirm. So they have a faith-based arm, and Sony Affirm, we gave them a fee. So we paid them to help us distribute the film, and we used their manpower. Our film Megan Levy was distributed by Bleecker Street. So we feel whoever is right for this film will go to different distribution companies, and they aid us in distribution. Larry asks, do name actors dominate budgets? Again, it all depends. I mean, you could have an actor that loves the project and doesn't take a fee or takes a nominal fee. But a lot of times we have not made a movie with an actor because, yeah, they're asking for maybe $2 million and our budget's 10. We can't spend a fifth of the budget on one person. So yes, it does happen. But again, the other side of it as well. Sometimes an actor doesn't get paid at all. We have worked with name actors that have done that. They've taken less because they want to do the film. Christopher asks, should we be positioning ourselves to be more attractive to agents, managers, or people like yourself? What is each person looking for from us? Big portfolio, varied forms, various genres, what should we have? So before, Chris, I said how you need to be in your best and strive to be great. That's what you should be doing. You should be always writing and have a huge portfolio. That way it looks like you have a great output. And if an agent says, I love this, but what else do you have? You can present all your ideas. You should not, as I said before, I think right now at least, you can write different genres. I would not market yourself as that. Because again, an agent manager has to know how to sell you. So if you are great at sci-fi, they're not going to sell you as a drama person just yet because you're not established. Once you're established, then you can market yourself different ways because they know you can deliver. They want to see you deliver in one genre first before you're trying your hand in all in comedy and everything else. Pick something, get good at that first, and then vary yourself out. Hope that helps. All right.
I think we have a couple more minutes if people have a few more questions or if you have some sort of parting thoughts, perhaps inspiring work for Sunday.
I would say, guys, we're all writers. We're all in this together. We're all creative types. I know it can be tough at times, but you should know anytime you finish a script, kudos to you. It is the hardest part about writing is sitting down and doing it. I know by experience. So if you've completed a script, congratulations. That is great. Start the next one right away. Because again, like I said, you have to be writing constantly. So have that output, have a big output. Finish one, congratulate yourself, have a drink, start the next one. And if you get a pass on that script, that's fine because it's going to get passed on numerous times before someone says yes. I'd love to see the script where the first person the writer gave it to said, this is great, and they make it. Doesn't happen. Do not get discouraged. Don't take it personal. It has nothing to do with you. It's the business. And, like someone said, what are the boxes that need to get checked? So many boxes need to get checked for someone to pick up your script because, you might have the greatest script ever, but it could cost $50 million and that company just can't afford it. You don't know why they're saying no. So do not get discouraged. Don't take it personal. Keep going.
I love that. There's one last question in the Q&A. Even though that's a great out, we'll have one more sentence out, but this is the last question in the Q&A.
Larry asks, what if you have a script that can't be produced but could be a writing sample? Personally, Larry, that's great. You should have many writing samples. Most of my scripts probably can't be produced because they're so outrageously high. So I go in it as a writing sample. So I get it in the best shape I can, and I show it to agents when I pitch, and it's a writing sample. You don't know when you do get an agent and you have 3 or 4 things that have been optioned and now are made, they're going to probably say, what else do you have? And you pull out that script. Like, we love this. It may not be great now for that company 5 years from now. I mean, Christopher Nolan made I think it was what is his my Inception. I think he had it for years. They said, we don't know how to make this. And of course, he makes Batman, explodes, best director working right now, and now they want to make an Inception. So that probably might have been his writing sample. And, you know, how many years later it's actually made. So don't get discouraged. You should have many running samples, and that hopefully one day will be produced. Hope that answers that.
Just keep writing, right?
Right on with a W.
Right
on with a W.
I love that. Thank you so much, Michael. Thank you, everybody, for these questions.
Thank you,
This is
guys.
awesome.
Great questions. It was so much fun. Hope everyone had a good time and learned some things.
Definitely. And keep on writing.
Right on.
Thanks, everybody. Have a great rest of your
guys.
day.